Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series on the effects of toxic fathers. I'm Weezy, and welcome back to Isabella Bank's YouTube channel. Today, we're diving deep into the echoes of Prince Harry's powerful statement in the Netflix documentary about breaking the cycle of toxicity for the sake of the children. Do you guys remember when he said, "It's up to us to break the cycle so that we don't pass it on to our children"? Seems to me that this is not just a royal issue, but a universal one. For those who missed our previous video, we began by exploring the concept of toxic fatherhood through a personal anecdote involving a conversation with my friend, Tony. We covered different types of abuse: emotional, physical, and financial, highlighting what we witnessed Prince Harry endure as the Sussexes stepped down as working royals. We also discussed the long lasting impact toxic fatherhood can have on a child's life. The link to that video is in the description box below. It's quite a good watch, even if I do say so myself. Returning to Prince Harry's statement about breaking the cycle of toxicity, it's crucial to recognize the importance of awareness. Once a victim or abuser becomes aware of the signs and traits of abuse, the battle is half won. Awareness opens up the door to healing. For instance, if you've been a victim of abusive fatherhood, or shall we call it toxic fatherhood, right? You stop beating yourself up too harshly every time you mess up a job, relationship, or marriage. You begin to search for ways to improve instead of just blaming the other party. This doesn't mean that things can't go wrong or that people don't do you wrong. But the thing is that you become better at choosing the right people to engage with, protecting yourself from potential manipulators and situations that don't align with your best interests in the first place. I'll explain more about this later in the series. If you're an abuser, you might notice that you can't secure the kind of relationships you desire. You might get the person you desire. However, before you know it, things start to go wrong and eventually fall apart. And you also find that you never seem to mature mentally. How do I know all of this? I mentioned briefly in my previous video that I was also a victim of toxic fatherhood. In my case, it was a double whammy of toxic parenting from both my father and mother. My parents divorced when I was very young, really young, like before I was 2 years old. After the divorce, my mother brought me to the United Kingdom where she was studying to become a surgeon. Luckily, at that time, she could lean on the tight knit Nigerian community for my care. After a while, though, feeling overwhelmed, she took me back to Nigeria and left me with my grandfather. I always wondered why my grandfather and not my actual father, because he was very alive at the time. I grew up in my grandfather's house from the ages of 5 to 18. All his children had grown up and left, so there was no one to teach me anything beyond sit still, don't make noise, and work hard. Any slight mistake was punished as though it was a capital crime. It was basically like a boarding school for a human with no guidance on how to be a female. No relational interaction, just rules without relationship. The one thought that kept me going was that one day I was going to grow up and be able to take care of myself, and maybe then I would be happier. I thought I had it all figured out. I believed that all I needed to make life better was to start working and earn my own money so that I could finally afford all the things I was denied when I was younger. Boy, was I wrong. Once I stepped into the battlefield of life, I realized that I struggled with a lot of things. Things that could be traced back to the lack of paternal care growing up. These struggles were preventing me from achieving what I wanted the most: a successful career, a home of my own, and just plain happiness. Life kept throwing curveballs until I gradually started shedding the wrong behaviors and habits I had picked up to cope with my childhood trauma. Honestly, being a Christian certainly helped me along the journey. But things really began to click for me when I stumbled upon a book called Father Daughter Talk. This gem breaks down in simple terms what a father's role in his daughter's life is supposed to look like and how his presence and guidance can protect her from being manipulated by men when she starts dating. When I discovered this book, I tell you, I wept like a child. I wish I had found it when I was younger. Maybe life would have turned out differently. It's a relatively small book, about 160 pages with big fonts, making it an easy read. I encourage every woman and girl to read this book. It explains so much and helps you understand how relationships with men should be and helps you protect yourself from predators. This same author has another book called Queenology, which shares the tips on things an absent mother should have told her daughter growing up. Remember, I told you earlier that my own case was a double whammy of absent father and mother. Anyway, the tips in this book help a woman understand how to authentically walk in her femininity, attracting the kind of man who protects, nurtures, provides, and maintains a stable home life. While these books were great for understanding relationships, when we talk about toxic fatherhood, we're dealing with deep rooted trauma that shapes your worldview long before you're ready for marriage. Whether you know it or not, that trauma twists your perspective. I then realized I needed to go deeper. But how do you tackle something when you don't even know what's wrong? Things started to make sense to me when I came across books like the one you have on the screen, Narcissistic Fathers, Practical Guide for Adult Children to Deal with Emotional, Abusive, Toxic Fathers and Recover from CPTSD, Complex Post Traumatic Disorder. Boy, reading this book was like seeing more pieces appear on the board. I began to understand what was missing in my life, why it was missing, and tips on how to fill in the gaps my father should have filled. This is one of the reasons why I'm such a staunch supporter of Prince Harry and Meghan. I understand the abuse they went through from a deep place of recognition. It's the kind of thing that you can't really feel. Like you might feel it on the surface level, like, oh, this behavior is unfair, but really, really feeling it the way Harry feels it, the way Meghan feels it. It's difficult to reach that level of understanding unless you have experienced it yourself. I see that Harry and Meghan are working through the process of healing themselves from their childhood traumas, reclaiming their lives in areas where they feel like they should have attained success. They're growing into the people they want to be. Most importantly, though, they are doing the work. My question for you is, are you? My challenge is, get up if you're not doing it and start doing the work. Nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. Make up your mind to conquer the circumstances. Get up from the canvas. Remember, it's a journey, so be patient with yourself and take small steps towards your goals. If these ideas resonate with you and you want to learn more about resolving childhood trauma that holds you back in crucial areas like career development, work life balance, relationships, and parenting, Narcissistic Fathers, like the book you have on the screen, is a great book to help you begin the journey of understanding what exactly went wrong in your growing up days. The book provides clarity on why you behave the way you do. It helps you understand and make sense of your toxic traits, where you got them from, and how to break them. You can find a link to this book in the description box below. Now, let's get back to Tony's story. When I mentioned the possible effects of toxic parenting on a child, Tony's voice sounded like I had hit him in the gut. His voice went high pitched. Really? He said, clearly taken aback. And I said, yes. I was really, really eager for him to understand what exactly toxic parenting was and how it impacts children. And I said to him, let's break it down further. First, we must commend the young man for wanting to honor his father on Father's Day. For all intents and purposes, he's doing his duty just as he has seen his father doing his duty to him when he was growing up. That's all he's seen, known, and is bringing to the table. Most likely, his father hasn't trained him on what he likes. While I was saying this, Tony then remembered the story of a woman who had come to him for consultation. While she was there, she got a call from her son. She spoke to her son for a bit, and as the conversation was closing, she said to her son, Mother's Day is in 2 weeks. Don't forget that handbag I told you I like. That's what I want on Mother's Day. I said to him, You see that? That's exactly how some mothers train their sons on what to get for them on special occasions. At a point, women realize that expecting you to read our minds does not work. Moving on to his friend, the father who had called him to complain about the Father's Day gift he had received from his son of whiskey and nuts. I said to him, he's confused by the son's gift because he doesn't realize that he's getting exactly what he put into his son. He believes his son should know better, but he may think this way because he himself didn't receive the supportive care he should have received when he was growing up. I said, lastly, let's address my friend. He said, who? I said, you. He said, what did I do? Before we dive into that, if you're finding value in this conversation, make sure to hit the subscribe button and join our awesome community. Your subscription helps bring more important discussions like this one to light. Now, continuing on, I said to him, You also have this toxic belief that paying the bills is all that a father owes his son. For goodness sake, it's the father's job to train his children, and simply fulfilling financial duties is not enough. Who instills the morals? Who instills the standards? Who teaches the son how to navigate relationships and life's challenges? It's supposed to be the father from a man's perspective. The real question you should have asked your friend when he brought this issue to you was, Did you talk to your son? Did you ask him if he was upset with you for any reason? Tony put his head down and said, Men don't talk to each other that way. Attempting to give another man advice on his family situation would be seen as interfering in another man's domain. But I said, The man called you and asked specifically about his son's behavior. This is not you interfering in his business. The man invited you to give his opinion. Instead of saying that as long as the father has taken care of his financial responsibilities, he needs to ignore his son, you should have encouraged him to engage his son in conversation about the gift and possibly correct his behavior from that moment forward. The problem with the advice you gave, I continued, is that if this situation is not addressed, the father will keep on feeling sad, unhappy, unappreciated for all the sacrifices he made while his son was growing up. Meanwhile, the son will think he's doing his duty by his father and nothing more is required since the father isn't saying anything. This just leads to both of them missing out on enjoying each other's company during their lifetimes. How sad is that? He sighed deeply. I said, You don't have to be sad. Toxic fatherhood is a harsh reality that can leave scars on both the father and the child. But it's crucial that we strive to do better for this and the next generation. Most likely, you yourself didn't get the supportive parenting you needed from your father, who also didn't get it from his father, and so on and so forth. Unknowingly, you are trying to pass down the same ideology, which is poisonous to the next generation. He said, Wow, I never knew you had so much wisdom. We laughed at his comment, but I could see his mind working as we moved on to discuss other things. 2 days later, he called me back and asked, How do we break this cycle? I don't want my kids to give me the same kind of present my friends' kids gave to him when they grow up. When I heard this question, my heart had never being happier. I tell you, I said to him, look, I'm not a therapist, but there are some simple steps you can take to make up for lost time with your kids and their friends. But we're going to need to schedule another telephone conversation because I'm just about to do something. Make sure next time when we're about to have this conversation, you have sent me jollof rice, chicken, plantain, salad, and a fizzy drink before you get me ready to give you the next bit of advice. We laughed over it and rescheduled the call. If you'd like to know what we discussed in our next meeting, let me know in the comment section and I'll continue this series until it's concluded. But for now, that's all I have for today's video. If you found this conversation interesting, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. Don't forget to share this video with others who might benefit from it.